Hi, Tim.
Hey, Amy.
Tim, do you
Yes,
know who's set to display the PowerPoint today?
I will be.
Oh, great. Do you mind pulling it up so we have a
Oh, yeah.
introduction screen to look at while we do our
Sure.
introductions?
How's
Thank
that?
you. Perfect. Okay, we are at time. Do we still expect Bettina to attend, Tim? Do you know?
We do. She was planning
Okay,
on doing an introduction on the first slide.
right. Okay, so we'll allow her time to join. We're just waiting for a few more people to join everyone who's on the line. All right, so Tim, Jennifer, and Travis, we still don't have Bettina on the phone.
I'm here now.
Oh, you are here now. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, apologies. Was
No
caught up
worries.
in another Teams meeting.
Okay. All right, we'll go ahead and get started then. Apologies, everyone, for the wait. Hello and good afternoon. On behalf of the Oregon Project Management Advisory Board, welcome to our Project Management User Group presentation of the month. My name is Amy Croucher and I will be facilitating our meeting today. We'd like to start with a few housekeeping items. As you may have noticed, this meeting is being recorded. Please mute your phone or PC if not speaking to help reduce any background noise. If you are not speaking, you are also encouraged to remain off camera. A link to the meeting resources will be shared shortly after today's session and posted on the DAS YouTube channel. If you have any questions, there will be time for questions at the end of each section of the presentation. You may raise your hand or place your questions in the chat. Also, if you're interested in business analyst processes, the Business Analyst Networking Group meets the third Wednesday during months in which PMUG does not meet. For more information, you may visit the Bang website posted in the chat. And you're welcome to share with your colleagues and encouraged to spread the word of our PMUG Wednesday sessions. I'm pleased to host this session presented by Enterprise Information Services, and I will now turn the presentation over to Bettina Davis, who will do introductions.
Yep, thank you, Amy. Good afternoon, everyone. For the ones who have not met me yet, I am Bettina Davis, Director for the EIS P3 team, which stands for Project Portfolio Performance. This team includes the Senior IT Oversight Analysts, Senior IT Portfolio Managers aligned within the 6 policy areas within the executive branch. We also have our PPM tool administrators / business analysts. The EIS team members here today will provide an interview of our updated P3 website, our EIS PPM tool and dashboard. We will also provide updates on our P3 2023-25 initiatives, including our PPM tool user experience migration project, a quick update of the annual agency maturity assessment, as well as the oversight for agile project practices initiatives. The presenters with me here in order of our agenda are Tim Roby, Senior Enterprise Business Analyst and also PPM Tool Administrator, Laura Metcalf, Senior IT Portfolio Manager for the Public Safety Policy Area, Jennifer Hannon, Senior IT Portfolio Manager for the Healthy People Policy Area, and Travis Miller, Assistant State CIO for the Healthy People Policy Area. The EIS 2023-25 initiatives are 3 goal-related strategies connected to our published EIS 2023-26 strategic frameworks objective, which is to mature project transparency and accountability. And this objective is connected to, within that publication's goal 1, which supports the adoption and application of formal project management principles, standards, and emerging best practices, and focusing on accelerating the adoption of agile and iterative development and project approaches and project practices. And if you have not seen the version 2 of the EIS Strategic Framework publication, it can be found on our EIS website landing page. And as you all see, we will have a jam-packed agenda for this afternoon. And like Amy mentioned, we will break for questions after each agenda item presentation. And with this intro, I would like to turn it over to Tim.
All right, thanks, Bettina. Thanks for the introductions for all of us. That'll save us a little bit of time as we transition from one of us to the other. And as Bettina said, I will be giving you an overview of some of the changes that have happened on the EIS website and where to find certain resources that we believe will be helpful to you if you don't already know where they are. So I will walk through that, and then I'll give some information about PPM after that as well, and then I'll open for questions as I go with those 2 topics. And then we'll switch gears into those P3 initiatives, starting with the PPM UX migration, and then the agency maturity assessments. And then I think Travis is going to finish us off with the Agile Oversight Initiative and the work that's going on within EIS around that. Okay. I'm going to jump out of the slide presentation for both the EIS website and for PPM, because I think you'd rather actually see those things than see slides about those things. But in general, what I'm going to talk about for the website is we'll go over the layout, so where things are, how to navigate the new website. And it is a recently redesigned website, the entire EIS website, similar to the DAS that recently got updated. We redesigned ours as well. Then I'll talk through some of the P3 pages that you'll find relevant information to you as project managers, and the P3 project dashboard, which was recently posted, utilizing data that's been publicly posted for a while. So I'll show you those things as well. And then we'll jump into PPM, talk about some of the screens in PPM, the user manual that was recently updated, and a PPM update guide that was also recently updated and completely redesigned with that update. So we'll talk through that and the sections in it. Then we'll jump back to the PPM, talk about training, and walk through those guides. So we'll look at some screens in PPM as well. I've set up a test project for us to look at, so we can cover some for those of you PMs that have access already to PPM. We can talk about which screens that you need to be updating information in most often for the oversight processes there. Okay, and with that, let me switch. Okay, now you should be seeing the EIS landing page. This is the newly designed website for EIS. And as you can see right near the top are the 7 different program areas within EIS, and you can quickly and easily click on any of those to get to the subpages for those program areas. I want to highlight shortly below that, you will find the Assistant State CIOs, a link to their page here. As they are not an official program area within EIS, it's not as easy to find them, so I wanted to point them out right there next to Terrence's picture, where you can find all of that information off of the ASCIO's page. Also, if you go down a little bit further, almost to the bottom, you can find that strategic framework that Bettina was talking about, the updated 2023 to 2026 strategic framework for EIS is down there, as well as a bunch of other resources that you can peruse at your leisure. So now I'm going to jump into the P3 specific information. So take you to the P3 page by simply clicking the button. And you can see the P3 page is also divided into some subpages for which information you might be looking for. If you're looking for information about governance and engagement, mainly the work that the senior IT portfolio managers do with you, you can go to that page. We also have a page about oversight, so the stage gate model in general and the processes involved there. But I'm going to actually start by taking you to our guidance and forms page, which hopefully you're familiar with this page because this is where you go to find things like the IT investment form, the project oversight guide, which recently got updated. Recently, as in, I think just last week, we published the new version of the project oversight guide. There's also a number of templates in here. And at the bottom, we have still the old budget prioritization information because we don't have the new budget instructions yet. And once we do, we will publish all of our new information that kind of goes along with those things and the resources and templates as well. And Jennifer, I think you were going to say something about the budget prioritization process. And you're still muted.
Sorry, yeah, I wanted to just point out to folks that this is here because we're in the midst of coming up on the budget prioritization effort. We have to wait until DAS releases the budget instructions. Once that happens, as Tim said, we'll update the instructions, any templates, anything like that, and they'll be posted out here. But just pointing out where you can find those materials when the time is right. Your senior IT portfolio managers and your assistant state CIOs will be working with your agency leadership to, kind of walk them through that process when the time is right. But just pointing out that's where those materials are located in case you or somebody within your organization needs to find that down the road. That was all.
And then I did it and I was on mute. So we also have a link here above those budget prioritization materials directly to the DAS Financial Office webpage so that you can find information there as well. But as soon as the instructions are published and available, we will update these links and update our information as quickly as we can once the instructions are available. So you'll be able to find all of that information there. All right, so jumping back to the P3 page, the next page that I want to talk about, of course, is the PPM tool subpage. And this is where you'll find all information that you need to know about PPM, how to get trained, how to get access, what to do if your access seems to be broken. This is also where we have links to the information that we've been calling that dashboard and to the open data website where PPM data has been publicly posted for a few years now. We've actually embedded the dashboard, so I'll come back to that in just a minute and talk about that dashboard. But first, I wanted to get down to this, how to get access to the PPM tool. So instructions on logging in, what to do if you forgot your password or you seem to be locked out, if you need view only access or full edit access. And if you follow the process here for requesting full edit access, You will also get this information with these links via email, but we've got the links for the videos on our website. So even if you're not going to be requesting PPM access, you can watch the wonderful training videos and get information that way. All of that with a little caveat here that because we're in the planning phases of what Laura is going to talk about later, of changing to the modern user experience of PPM, this training is also going to all have to be revamped and changed. So there will be a whole new set of training. We have our organizational change management for the project is looking at what type of training existing users might need as we switch from the classic user experience that we're using now to that modern user experience. So any of you that already have PPM access, you can probably look forward to some type of training on the modern UX. And then anybody that requests new access once we migrate will have a whole new training to go through. But the current training information is there on the website and how to get access. So if you ever have any questions come up about that, that's where you'll find all of that information. And as I said, we've got the dashboard, which is sourced from some PPM data that we've been posting publicly for years now. But it gives some nice visuals to that data, and it is fully interactive, so you can select your agency from the drop down if you just want to see your agency's PPM information, mostly centered around the budget information that's entered into PPM and project counts. There are 2 pages of this dashboard, so you can switch to the second page and get some other information, see how things are broken down. Let me see. I'm going to actually go to the full-sized dashboard so you can see it full screen. Even though it's cool that we can embed it on our website, the full interactive nature of it is a little bit more fun when you've got a full screen because you can actually see all of the visuals change as you click on the different aspects within it. And there are tooltips that pop up as you hover your mouse over different things. So a lot of different resources and information there. There's also on the second page a link directly to, nope, it's on the first page. I always confuse myself with that one, to the actual data set in the matrix table that those visuals are created from. And so this is the data set that we've been publishing for, I think, about 3 years now. This data set is refreshed monthly by the 5th of the month. So on this page, you can see when was it last updated, and you can see kind of the count of projects and how many pieces of data there are on each project. And where is my actual data set today? Did they change it on me and I actually have to go to view the data? Oh, it's a tab now. Yep, there was an update to the Open Data website, but I figured it out. So this is the actual data set in a matrix table that those visuals are taken from. So if you wanted to search for something here, you could search for your specific project on here and find the 15 lines of data about your project. Okay, before I jump over to PPM and start that portion, are there any questions about the P3 web pages, the open data dashboard and data set? I see a hand raised. Can you unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your question?
Yeah, can you show us one more time how did you get that actual data page from the dashboard?
Oh, yes, from the dashboard itself. All right, so from the dashboard, and I'll open it full screen so it's a little bit easier for you to see that. On page 1 of 2, in this data source tooltip on the left-hand side, there is a link to the EIS IT project portfolio dataset. There is also a link on this PPM page where it's embedded. There is a link right here directly to the dataset. And of course, the link within the dashboard works from the embedded version also. So I've got links all over the place. I'm actually still working on how to get a link here on the data set to the dashboard. We have a link here to the EIS website, but we don't have a link here directly to the dashboard. I'm still working with some folks on how we might be able to do that. There are some limitations that I'm running into. Okay, any other questions on the website? Okay. In that case, I'm going to just continue on. I'm going to go ahead and log into my test environment of PPM. And then we'll talk through those screens. Just give it a second to log me in. Okay. And you're going to see a whole bunch of stuff on here that you wouldn't normally see as a project manager because I am a PPM admin. So I get to see a whole bunch of other stuff. But I'm first going to hover on the home icon on the left and go to portfolio management, click on projects, which brings me to the project screen where I can actually search for my project, which I don't have to because it's right here at the top. I made sure it would be with my naming convention. Once you're within your project in PPM, it should automatically bring you to this project summary screen, depending on where you get to it from. If you do like I did and go through the search, or you use your portlet, it typically will bring you here to the project summary screen. This is where you manage things like your project start and finish dates. Scrolling down is where your financial information is, where you would put your baseline budget information, or if you're pre-baseline, your estimated budget information. Should basically be the same cost numbers that you're using on your ITI form when you're submitting that IT investment form initially. These should kind of line up. So that's where you're going to manage that information. Also, your status and status comments are here for you to manage, and the objective of the project should be in here. Those are all kind of required fields. You can update any of those fields as you need to during the life of the project, depending on how your agency kind of manages that information, and certain baselining if you have rules around when you can and can't baseline some of those things like the dates and the costs. Let's see, from the project summary screen, the next area that we're going to talk about is the stakeholders screen. So if you hover on properties up here at the top, you get this long list of screens. Project summary is the very top one. Stakeholders for this one, because it's a level 3 project, it has more screens than a level 1 or a 2 project might have, but you're always going to have the stakeholders screen. This is where you'll have your project manager's name entered here. You can add agency contact and contact information. You'll also have your oversight analyst, your portfolio manager, and security analysts, primary and secondary, if you have a primary and secondary, and you can manage that information here. Primarily for you as a project manager, though, what we want you managing is who the project manager is and the agency information here at the top. If you have a change in project managers on a project, please don't attempt to do that yourself. There are multiple screens where updates need to be made for that new project manager to get all of the functionality that they need to have. So if you have a change in project managers on a project, you can go ahead and change the name here, but please contact the ppm.info at DAS. I'll type that in the chat real quick. That is the email that gets you to myself or the other PPM admin, whoever happens to be monitoring that mailbox on that given day. Will get that message and will help you with the remaining things that need to happen for that project manager change on the project. But this is that stakeholder screen where you can manage the agency contact information. You can even put your sponsor in here if you want to list your sponsor. One other note that I will make about this page that is something fairly new: if your project is required to have IQMS engaged in your project, we are asking that you add the QA contractor's name in here. So which IQMS vendor was awarded the contract for your IQMS on your project. Enter their name in there. We're using that to kind of speed up some of our reporting processes through the statewide QA program and our support of that program and what they're doing. So if you have that, please enter that in here. Okay, The next screen that is going to be important to you as a project manager is on this team tab. So if you go to this team screen, you'll see a number of individuals from EIS that will be automatically added onto your project. Hopefully you added your senior IT portfolio manager as part of the idea that you converted into a project, and so they automatically got carried over. If not, make sure that your portfolio manager is listed. They will make sure that any other EIS folks that need to be added to your project get added, like the oversight analyst, those security analysts or analysts that may be added. If LFO needs to be added so that they have access to your project, the senior IT portfolio manager will take care of that. We're also starting to add statewide QA analysts so they can help in the determination of whether or not your project needs IQMS. And then once it's determined that it does, we're making sure that they're on there so that they can keep track of the progress of that vendor and have access to the artifacts and things like that that are uploaded. But the main things that you need to work on or maintain for this are any team members from your agency that also need access to the collaboration space of the project. If they're not listed here, they won't have access to the documents in the collaboration space. And that's this tab on the far right for this one in collaboration, where you upload all your artifacts. So if you've got team members that need access, make sure they're added on the team here. If you're having trouble with adding people on the team or removing people from the team, go ahead and contact the PPM admins at the PPM info mailbox, and we can help you with that. Couple other screens over on the properties tab that are going to be important for you. The artifacts screens, and there are multiple of them for our level 1, 2, and 3 projects. You're just going to have these 2 project artifacts and stage 1 artifacts. So stage 1 artifacts is all of your initiation artifacts for stage 1. And then project artifacts is everything else, and it's organized by stage. So I'll go to the project artifacts screen. The 2 look similar, but the project artifact screen has this additional stage column, so you can sort or filter by which stage. So if you're working on stage 2, you can say, okay, only show me the stage 2 artifacts and hit filter, and now you're only looking at your stage 2 artifacts. So some easy ways to drill this down. And there are some columns here that you as a PM are not supposed to touch. Those like the required column and the approved column, and of course the analyst comments, that's for the oversight analyst to put comments in there for you. But when you submit an artifact in the collaboration, you upload it in collaboration, then you're supposed to come in here and update this, the submitted and the project manager comments. So make sure you're updating those columns and watching those artifact screens. The other important screen, of course, and the one I think you all care the most about, is your submittals screen. This is a screen that you actually submit for your gate endorsements and see the approval recorded. And again, this is kind of a split screen. So as project managers, you want to focus on this left-hand side where the submittals are and let EIS go ahead and fill in the right-hand side with their information. Please don't check this submit box until your oversight analyst and senior IT portfolio manager have told you that they feel you're ready to submit for the gate endorsement. If you click that box too early, it just gets things started well before we're ready for them to get started, and ends up making it look like it took you way too long to get your gate endorsement. So wait to click that until you are really ready to submit for your gate. That way all of our dates will align correctly, because the dates get filled in by the system and you can't change them. That's the whole reason why I say that part. So those are the main screens on the project that you're going to care about. Now, some documents that can help you with pretty much everything that I just said are in this knowledge store. So by hovering on the home on the left again, and I go to organization, knowledge store, we've got a couple of documents that I mentioned earlier. One of them is the PPM update guide, which you'll see right here. The other is in the manuals folder, and that is the CA PPM project manager. And we have 2 of those, pre-June 2020 and post-June 2020. So you most likely want to look at the post-June 2020 for most of your projects. So let me go ahead and pull that up. This is what the project manager manual looks like, the post June 2020. And some of the pages, I'm just going to scroll to the table of contents and just talk about a little bit of high level what's in here. So there's a lot in here about PPM navigation, the oversight process, the whole ideas portion of the process, creating your idea, converting your idea, what you need to do once it's converted to a project, adding all that information that I kind of went through those screens for you already, the different oversight models, the differences between the level 3 projects and what the PPM screens look like, and your level 1 and 2 projects and what your screens are going to look like, keeping your project information updated. If you have a non-project and what non-project oversight, just a little bit about those, even though those aren't in PPM, we've got a little bit of information in here about that. And then if you have a program that you need to set up for program oversight, there's information for that. Really, if you're in that boat, talk to your senior IT portfolio manager and they'll get in touch with PPM admins and we'll work on it together if that's the route that we're going to go. We also have a glossary, some question and answers, and then a whole bunch of troubleshooting that has come up that we've added into the guide there as well. And of course, that PPM info email is scattered throughout the document in multiple places, so you can always find that to contact us if you have questions. And last but not least, this is the new Project Manager PPM Update Guide. It is only the 2 pages long, which is why I'm displaying it that way. I'm not zooming in close enough that you can probably read it, but you could easily, if you want to have a hard copy, if you're one of those hard copy folks, you can print it front and back on one piece of paper and have it as a reference at your desk. Otherwise, it's 2 simple pages and it's organized by these blue headings. So the first section is areas in PPM that you should check on every month to make sure that they're up to date on a monthly basis. The second one is during stage 4. So after your project has baselined, you've gotten your stage gate through approval, here are the things that you need to have maintain and update on a regular basis during that stage 4. Those are typically monthly as well. And then you have on the top of page 2, anything just prior to submitting for a gate endorsement. These are the things that you should make sure are updated on your project just prior to submitting for a gate endorsement. And for level 3s, there's a lot more than there are for level 1 and 2 because you have all the financial information that needs to be updated on the fund type tracking screen. So it's got all of that information in here. And then the last one that I want to highlight a little bit is when there are changes on your project team. And this is where we've included that information about your IQMS vendor being added to that stakeholder screen. So just wanted to highlight that because that's somewhat of a new addition on here. And then of course, a couple notes at the bottom about anybody from EIS that needs to be added. Usually your senior IT portfolio manager is going to take care of adding them for you. Okay, any questions on all of the PPM stuff I've presented? Okay, I think I have talked quite enough then, and I will go back to the PowerPoint presentation. I'm starting to cough already from too much talking. So I'm going to hand it over to Laura to talk about the first of our initiatives.
Thank you, Tim. I'm Laura Medcalf, project sponsor for the PPM Modern User Experience Project. It's been almost 8 years since PPM was first introduced to track and facilitate oversight in the state of Oregon. Since then, we've had one change to the look and feel of PPM, but minimal new functionality has been made available to us. Now with the modern PPM UX project, we have the opportunity to update the look and feel as well as some of the functionality of the tool. This project is a migration from what we call the classic user interface that we're using right now to the modern user interface. It's not a data migration as the modern UX continues to use the same database, but it is enabling us to take advantage of a re-architected user interface more flexible workflows and design, and some additional functionality. The screenshots we have here are kind of a sneak peek of some of the changes coming up with the new project. You can see on the left, we have project tiles now instead of the list that you're used to looking at. So you can have project tiles with some metrics and key data right there for easy viewing. And then on the right side, we have a screenshot of some of the new collaboration where you can have a back and forth between the P3 team and the project team within the tool. All right, next slide. Let's start with a high-level roadmap. EIS submitted a policy option package to fund this project during the 23-25 biennium, and we've received the approval and funding for that last year. In September, we onboarded our PM, Connie Yeager, who's on screen right now. Wave, Connie. She's from our EIS PMO. And we're still working on the selection of a business analyst to help backfill our own P3 business analysts who are working on this project. In December, we brought in a vendor to do a migration assessment, which should conclude over the next month or so. And I will talk more about that assessment on a later slide. We're planning for a procurement this summer for a migration vendor and then implementation during the 24-25 fiscal year. Next slide. All right, current challenges. I'm sure many of you are familiar with, but we'll go through those here today. Kind of give you a sense for what the issues are that we're trying to solve with this project. So as it was configured and customized in 2015, the classic PPM tool has these following shortcomings. Limited KPIs and dashboards. Well, the current version and configuration of the PPM tool provides a basic project summary screen with items like budget, start and end dates, project objectives that Tim was showing you earlier. It doesn't provide a comprehensive or customized investment dashboard supporting transparency of project risk and performance. Inefficient communication and collaboration. EIS and partner agencies are unable to collaborate effectively on submitted documentation using the current PPM interface. This results in communication being sent and captured in a variety of tools like Microsoft Outlook and Teams. And then these are not easily added into the PPM tool, resulting in a lot of missing information within the official system of record for project oversight. Unauthorized alteration of approvals and required conditions. The state CIO approvals or rejections of project stage gate approvals can be altered or deleted by P3 or agency PPM users. Similarly, required conditions for project stage gate approvals can also be altered or deleted by P3 or agency users. Obviously, this is not ideal because PPM needs to capture an accurate history of those required conditions and artifacts and approvals for appropriate oversight to be applied throughout the project. Artifact deletion and lack of audit trails. Documentation submitted for projects subject to the oversight process, including project artifacts, P3 analysis, recommendations, requirements, can be deleted by P3 or agency PPM users without rules in place to prevent this or an audit trail history to know that it has occurred. As a system of record for project oversight, PPM must retain a history of documentation submitted, EIS requirements and recommendations, and corresponding agency responses. And lastly, limited workflow. The current workflow consists of a limited set of email notifications with no ability to track progress towards artifact or stage gate approvals. And without an end-to-end workflow, critical data for submissions, reviews, and approvals is not captured consistently within the PPM tool. So those are our biggest shortcomings at this point. Yes, next slide. Thank you. The assessment. So in preparation for migrating to the modern user experience, we've contracted with a vendor to provide an assessment of our current state and determine tasks, a plan, estimates, and impacts related to moving users to the modern UX. Some of the steps are to determine impacts, reviewing the existing functionality to determine end user impacts of moving to the modern UX, determine pain points, reviewing existing pain points faced by end users and identifying opportunities to relieve those, and determining architectural changes based on pain points and new tool features, identifying any changes to the overall architecture that would impact end user processes. Vendor deliverables include requirements, project plan, the set of tasks needed to be completed as part of the movement to the modern UX, a training plan for deploying the modern UX to users, effort estimates for configuration, and best practice recommendations for the migration. The scope for the project includes this list of business objectives and activities, configuration of the modern UX and migration of users to the new user interface, user training on the new interface and functionality changes, updated system documentation and user guides, addressing the artifact deletion and unauthorized data update issues, adding and updating dashboards and KPIs, improving accessibility and transparency of project data, and enhancing cross-agency communication and collaboration within the PPM tool. Additionally, we'll be researching the feasibility of including optional items into the project scope. These may include automation of project reporting on the transparency website, automated reporting of project indicators, options for adding non-project investment tracking in PPM, streamlining artifact submission, review, and approval workflows, support for agencies who would like to use PPM as their project management tool, this PPM tool as their project management tool, and options for integration with other project management tools like Microsoft Project that agencies are already using. Again, the project scope includes assessing each of these items and determining which, if any, can be included within the project budget and timeline. Finally, I'd like to outline some of the methods and activities we'll be using for project information and updates. Soon we will be reestablishing the PPM Change Control Board. And I know I saw a few of you that were on the Change Control Board previously. The CCB consists of experienced agency PPM users who provide input and approval for PPM configuration changes. And this group will be actively engaged during this project for feedback during design, activities, and user testing. So we're looking forward to getting that board up and running again. We'll also be utilizing the PPM user distribution list for regular email communications regarding project progress. And we will be providing training for users on the modern user experience and any added or modified functionality. I forgot your name, Tim. Tim talked about that earlier on the PPM pages. And that is it for the presentation. If you have any questions, we can answer those now. And we also have Connie's email address on here. She can facilitate answering any questions that you have that you think of later after the presentation. Lisa.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. That was really great.
You're
I do have
welcome.
a question. I've been looking through and I didn't know if maybe the new guide has this definition, but what does EIS look at when they're reviewing the ITI on what the trigger mechanisms are for level 1, 2, or 3? I'm unable to find that specific information on how does DAS make that determination on what level is required for an investment. Thank you.
So Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, but that is in our project oversight guide, correct?
Yes, it
Yes.
is.
And that is on our the
webpage.
PPM webpage under forms and templates, right? Is that still what it's called?
Guidance and forms.
Guidance and forms. There we go.
And that's under the new guide, right? I guess I have the
Yes.
older guide. And so, thank you, Tim. Appreciate that. Okay. That answers my question. Thank you.
Great. You're welcome.
I'll touch on that a little bit too on the next topic. I think that'll help give some clarity too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Any other questions? And again, feel free to shoot any questions later to Connie, and she'll get those to us. All right. Turning it over to Jennifer.
Me. All right. I feel like I need to ask you guys all to like stretch. This feels like a long meeting, right? A lot of sitting.
Yeah.
Okay, this will be pretty quick, but I wanted to talk with you guys a little bit about the agency maturity assessment, kind of what it is, and then we'll talk about some changes. So just to kind of bring you up to speed, many of you are probably familiar with what this is, but if you're not, it's an assessment that we do, EIS does. It's a team effort. So the assistant state CIOs, the senior IT portfolio managers, and the oversight analysts for different policy areas work together to do an assessment for each agency in their policy area. And it looks at governance, project management, and then the oversight experience. So we look at an agency, how mature are their governance practices, project management practices, things like that. And they get a score. And so at the end of that, at the end of each year, you'll get a final agency maturity assessment score. We use that and pair it up with all the projects that come the following year when a project is submitted. And Lisa, I think this might answer your question. When a new project comes in, there's an initial complexity assessment that is also sent in that the project kind of self-assesses. And so we take that score along with the agency maturity assessment, and then it's used to kind of give us a score that might determine whether it's a level 1, 2, or 3 project. We don't take it and run with it, but I have to say it's pretty accurate. We may look at it and there might be circumstances where we might feel it's more operational and down it to like a level 1, or we might feel that there's other circumstances that would mean it needs to be a little bit higher, but that's what it is. And that's how we use it. Go ahead and go to the next slide, Tim. And so this last year, we've made some adjustments to the assessment. It's been expanded. So it still looks at the same 3 focused areas, but those areas have been split apart into some subsections. So instead of having 3, we now have 8. So you can kind of see, I know this is an eye chart, it's not meant to be read, but you can kind of see over there on the right, it's a little bit longer. There's now 2 sections that kind of go over IT governance. It's split into more the governance practices versus kind of the agency's strategic and IT planning. And then the midsection, which is project management, we've expanded on those. It now looks at kind of project leadership, PMO structures and processes, capabilities and credentials. So do you have the right people leading certain areas in a project, project management, change management, vendor management, business analysis, those kinds of things. And then the last one is project controls. So, do you follow good risk management? Are things taken through the change control as they're supposed to? Things like that, rebaselining, those kinds of controls. And then the last one just expands a little bit on the oversight experience. So the other thing is it allows for a little bit more feedback. So you can see there on the right, there's in the yellow column, there's a space for us to offer kind of either observations, good, and maybe some suggestions where we might see for improvement. The assessment is not meant to be a gotcha. It's not meant to call you out. We're trying to meet you agencies where they are, but it does allow agencies to see this is how we view you. This is our experience in working with you. And we do actually kind of collaborate once we do our assessment. We will work with you and kind of with the agency leadership, and if there's something we missed or didn't consider, things like that before we finalize. So I wanted to mention, I think we're finishing. I think there's a couple agencies that aren't quite yet done, that we're not done doing their assessments, but you should be receiving your agency leadership or your PMO leadership should have received your scores from your senior IT portfolio manager. So you can reach out to them if you have any questions. But we are really urging project managers to know about this change. There's a new oversight level assessment. It's been published out on our website with some guidance. So if you're going to be submitting a new project, please go out to our website, take a peek at the new ICA and oversight level assessment spreadsheet. If you have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to your policy area team, ASCIO, SIPM, oversight analyst, and we'll get you steered in the right direction. I think that was all I wanted to cover. Anybody have any questions? All right. Yeah, Lisa.
Sorry, I don't need to be the only one asking questions. So when you're providing the comments and feedback to the different agencies, is there a way that we're able to also provide feedback regarding our experiences? Is that something that we're sharing
That is
and
a
together
good
around
question.
the campfire?
I don't think that is what, so the assessment, I don't think was intended to be used to go both ways. That said, I think, your portfolio manager, your oversight analyst, your ASCIO, I'll speak for myself. I personally welcome any feedback that PMs might have as they go through the process. If there's a pain points or something that's a frustration, by all means, I think we're open and receptive to hearing feedback that you have to offer.
Yeah, I just thought it was more or less on a case by case basis based on the complexity of the different projects that we have. There's not always going to be, maybe the same type of feedback. And so I just didn't know if this was a method that we could use that would be specifically just for the outcomes from the project. So how could we do better, as well, and improve our processes, and so I think that's sort of my mindset is how I'm kind of looking at it.
So the agency maturity assessment is really for the overall agency for that year. So our observations on all the projects that are run that year. The initial complexity assessment is project by project. So there isn't the feedback. If we had feedback on a specific project and how it went, that would probably be in maybe like a lessons learned look back or, something like that. I think if I understood your question right.
Yes, you did. Great. Thank you.
Okay. All righty. Okay. Anything else? Otherwise, I will hand it over to, I think, Travis, you're up.
I think so.
Over to you.
Great. I'm going to try to take control. We'll see if that works. Otherwise, I'll just have you moving forward. So I get it. Oh, I think it just puts an arrow on it. Never mind.
You should be able to advance slides now, I think.
Okay, well. Oh, there it goes.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, got it. Sorry. All right, Travis Miller, Assistant State CIO for the Healthy People Policy Area. I'm just going to give a brief overview of the EIS Agile Oversight Initiative and provide an update on the various work streams. I think some of you may have seen this before. We presented to the Oregon Project Management Advisory Board about a month and a half ago. As Bettina mentioned, this is one of our goal-related strategies. It's in the EIS Strategic Framework for 2023-26. And to summarize, we're hoping to identify barriers that prevent or limit the adoption of Agile, clarify the oversight engagement for Agile initiatives, align with best practice, enable the acceleration of value delivery, and really putting people at the center of digital transformation. So we have an Agile scan that's happening right now. That's our first work stream. Many of you likely received and hopefully responded to the EIS Agile Assessment Survey. Some really good results there that we'll briefly touch on. The second work stream is focused on an assessment of the Stage 8 oversight model as it is today and making recommendations on that. Additionally, a third work stream is focused on pilot initiatives. And then the last work stream is looking at Agile training and supporting a community of practice, hopefully in partnership with this community. Go ahead and move on. So I'm not going to read these definitions for you, but have them as a point of reference. The Agile Practice Guide has a very simple one. Essentially, read the Agile Manifesto, which isn't particularly helpful. The definition for disciplined Agile is a little bit more helpful. Again, this one focuses on accelerating value, customer centricity, proactive collaboration, showing your work, fast cycles of feedback. There's definitely some lean aspects to it in terms of optimizing flow, work in progress, and continuous improvement. These are all linked here, so you're welcome to read them at your leisure. Also, just touching on some of the myths that are out there. This is adapted from a California publication on understanding Agile. I'm not going to enter into a discussion of each of these. They basically did a 30-page report addressing each of these myths, but I just want to state them. So the first one is, and these are myths, Agile means no planning. I think this community knows that, but it's important to restate that. Also, Agile means no governance. Just because you're using Agile methods doesn't mean you can't have governance, and we will have governance. Also, the misnomer that there's no documentation with Agile. Again, another common myth. The idea that Agile practices are new. We've been doing this for over 20 years, and really, if you look at some of the kind of foundational underpinnings of Agile, they go much further back in terms of continuous improvement. There's also an idea that Agile only works with small projects. We could get into a metaphysical debate about scaling Agile and so on, but Agile is plainly used in a variety of contexts, multiple industries at various levels of scale. Another common misperception or myth is that Agile equals Scrum. Scrum is probably the most popular, most versatile framework and most widely used within the state and probably most places, but it doesn't equate with being Agile. There are other ways of being Agile. The idea that implementing Agile is easy, that's a myth. I think we'll all come to grips with that one. And then there's another notion that if you're not doing pure Agile, then you're not doing Agile at all. And I think we want to be pragmatic and recognize that we're going to be in a hybrid world. I already got a question. Wow. Okay.
There's a question in the chat. Is there a work stream within EIS to partner with DASPS and DOJ to have them come along for the Agile ride?
Working on that. And it's yes and no, but we'll touch on that a little bit later. And then also this notion that Agile is undisciplined. I think it actually takes a high-level process discipline. Also, Agile is only for custom development, software development. Again, Agile is used in many contexts, even within the context of procurement, surprisingly, and HR. Imagine that. And then also this myth that Agile is going to replace a stage gate oversight model. We're going to be embedding Agile practices within the stage gate oversight model. So gated Agile, call it an anti-pattern, that's the reality. All right, so workstream 1, the Agile scan. This is just a brief status update. So what we've been doing and kind of what's next. A lot of literature review. We have a lot of research, sources. I'll share some of the top ones. Also, analyst consultations. We've been meeting regularly with both Gartner and Infotech. A lot of learnings there. I would say that the Infotech materials are probably the most actionable, and I'll touch on one of their particular blueprints in a minute. We also built an Agile glossary that pulls together sources from some federal materials, PMI, as well as both the PMI Agile Practitioner's Guide, as well as Discipline Agile. And then we also did the Agile Assessment Survey. So that went out, many of you answered it, and we're still consuming those results. Concurrently, we also did a statewide portfolio assessment, looking at everything that was basically the data that you just looked at in terms of the PPM dashboard. We pulled a full report of everything in the current EIS portfolio, and then essentially determined whether it was Agile, what flavor of Agile, and then also any kind of observations or notes from that. So essentially, what are perceptions of Agile today, and what does Agile look like in the state? So more is going to come out on that later. We're still very much in the middle of this work. Like I said, in terms of what's next, we'd like to do some follow-up interview, continue doing some information gathering, gathering any artifacts, statement of work that people have developed. And then, like I mentioned, a review and analysis of the survey and portfolio assessment. In terms of the literature review, these are some of the top sources that we're looking at. Obviously, we have PMI's Agile Practice Guide. There's also PMBOK version 7 that we're looking to align to, particularly in terms of tailoring. And then also, for those who are familiar with Discipline Agile, there's Choose Your WOW, Choose Your Way of Working, which Discipline Agile is a decision framework for Agile practices. And then California went Agile, or introduced its Agile oversight model, gated Agile in 2017. So there's a lot of learnings there. The federal government, they have the GAO Agile Assessment Guide. It's about 300 pages, 3 years in the makings, and probably the least Agile artifact you'll see. The U.S. Digital Services has some really good material, as well as 18F, which is part of the General Services Administration. So happy to share some of these resources. Obviously, can't ship you textbooks, but we have other resources that we can share. So you're going to get a quick preview of some of the findings. We had 265 responses to the survey. All the policy areas were represented. We had more than 50 agencies of varying sizes, so very robust response. I was excited to see that. Also, broad representation. We had representation from the information technology groups, the project management community, yourself, and also for context, we distributed the survey to all IT leaders, all agency directors, this group, as well as the Bang group, and also anyone who has ever been or will be a PPM user. So we used that listserv as well. I think we did, Tim. Is that right? Yeah. So yeah, really good representation, project community, and then also even in terms of executive leadership, agency directors, in some cases self-identified, took the survey, and we're really happy to get their feedback. One of the really interesting things, or one of the encouraging responses, was about interest in receiving additional information, potentially attending EIS-sponsored trainings, or joining an Agile community of practice. We had 178 people who indicated that, yes, they want more information on the EIS Agile Oversight Initiative. Probably many of you in this meeting. So that was very encouraging. And not only did they say yes, but they also provided their email address. So essentially, you're rendering their responses no longer confidential. We also got we had a question on organizational agility, and this was interesting. I think the first question really talks about mindset, and overall, close to 60% indicated that they strongly agreed that their organization had the right mindset to respond quickly to changing business needs. But then when you look at tools and processes, that number drops down substantially to just over 30%. So kind of an interesting look at organizational agility as opposed to agile project practices. We're still kind of digging into the data to see if there's any trends in terms of role, policy area, or experience with agile. So more to come on that. And then in terms of common agile challenges, this was a scanning tool that we took from Infotech that's essentially designed to tailor engagement and training around agile. I've got the top 10 here, but the top 5, governance and gating, agile training, how non-agile teams work with agile teams, just general agile skills, and then of course, procurement, which may be a challenge. In terms of the most common agile methodologies used, Scrum was far and away the most common response. We have some other in there that we haven't really disaggregated. I'm not sure how successful we can be, assuming, I'm not sure if we can assume that people are consistent in their conventions, Kanban and discipline agile. But by and large, it's mostly a Scrum world out there. And then we also looked at 4 projects or 4 people who had experience with projects that have gone through EIS oversight. Where did they experience challenges? It seems, and this is fairly obvious, most of the challenges are really stage 2 and stage 3. So resource and solution analysis and execution. We had people rank the stages by the degree to which the degree to which they experience challenges. I was actually a little surprised that we had so many responses for stage 1, but something to think about. So that's essentially the preview of the assessment findings. Work stream 2 is looking at our current oversight processes. And so what we've been doing is traditional to agile gating artifact mapping, essentially leveraging a tool from Infotech, specifically on moving from a traditional to an agile-friendly project gating model. And then also looking to tailor oversight requirements for agile pilots. And we'll touch on what that would look like in terms of ideal candidates, but really within the existing framework, adapting stage gate 1 initiation documentation, as well as doing a readiness assessment for potential pilots, and then also working to develop agile-friendly endorsements, as well as an agile-friendly required artifacts form. And then the other thing that we're looking at is what we're calling incremental endorsements. And this is a little bit further down the road, but looking at a partial stage gate 3 endorsement that's either based on the minimum viable product or some number of sprints, followed by a secondary endorsement once you've demonstrated readiness. And then also looking to incorporate agile metrics into status reporting. So in terms of what's next for this, still synthesizing the findings and then developing recommendations. And also just to highlight, this is the blueprint we're leveraging from Infotech. If you're interested, there's some great tools and templates in here. It has an agile readiness assessment, the traditional to agile gating artifact mapping template, which is hard to say, is very helpful in terms of basically starting, here's everything we have in a level 3 project. Here's what the equivalent artifact would look like in an agile model. They also have their own gate 3 AB checklist, status reports, and burn down charts. So happy to share this blueprint. That's the other nice thing about Infotech is it's shareable. Gartner doesn't like you to share anything. In terms of the agile pilots, the status update, we are working on criteria for selecting agile pilots. And part of this was looking at the current portfolio. And after having looked at the current portfolio, then applying some of these criteria. But for agile pilots, we want to focus on organizations or projects that are ready to take an agile approach, under $5 million, early stage, pre-RFP, and then also limiting it to no more than one Agile pilot per policy area, and really probably focusing on complexity level 1 or 2 in terms of that complexity assessment. So we're doing this work now, looking at the portfolios by policy area, collaboration between the ASIOs, but primarily the SIPM and the oversight analyst. And then in terms of what's next, identifying those pilots, confirming whether they're willing to participate, and then essentially working through what oversight will look like for those pilots. And of course, compiling lessons learned. And the last work stream is really kind of focused on stakeholder engagement, training, community of practice. We're mapping our stakeholders. We're doing some communications planning. We're talking to you. We're talking to your peers. We're out there, and really, we'd really like to partner with Oregon Project Management Advisory Board on an Agile community of practice to support this work, and really to provide some convening around Agile practices and training opportunities. Ultimately, I think we're going to develop some Agile guidance to support that, and then trying to identify training opportunities, because there is a skills gap, and it's going to be a big change, not just for project managers, not just for IT organizations, but for the business as well. And likely that'll be where the biggest change is. And that's it, unless there are questions.
There is a comment in the chat regarding the PMO OIS for ODHS and OHA. They've completed a PMBOK 7th edition review and have developed recommendations. If you guys would like, feel free to reach out when the time is right, and they'd be happy to share.
Absolutely. I also know that Willamette University, the Chief Human Resource Office is working with Willamette University to update the project management training to specifically reflect PMBOK version 7.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's not necessarily helpful to all of us here, but that work is also happening.
Yes, that's correct. And there's a question if they're able to receive a copy of the presentation. We will be posting a PDF copy of the presentation on the PMUG website, and that information links to that website and information will be shared after the meeting via email.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see any other. There's a chat item, sorry. Yes, and so the video and chat information, someone posted a link to the PMUG website. Is that correct? Yes, that's what it looks like. Thank you, Tiffany. All right. Anything else? If not, I'll go ahead and start with closing. Seeing nothing else, thank you so much, Bettina, Tim, Laura, Jennifer, and Travis for presenting. We hope everyone who's attended has enjoyed this presentation, and thank you all so much for attending. I will post a link to a short survey to improve our PMUG presentations in the chat here real quick. Apologies. And you can look for follow-up email with links, as I mentioned before. After those links are available, I'll send an email to everyone, letting them know where to find the resources. Also, please share with your team members and those who may not be on the PMUG listserv to reach out to myself to be added to the PMUG listserv, amy.croucher@doj.state.or.us. Again, if you're interested in learning more about the business analyst processes, visit the Bang website posted earlier in the chat, and enjoy the rest of your week. We'll see you again in March. Thank you, everyone. I'm just staying online to save the recording.